Hi everyone, and welcome to the final video in the Equity in Research series. I'm Mila, a sociologist, researcher, and community leader working at the intersection of environmental justice and energy equity. In the first three videos, we talked about equity as a guiding principle, the tools of collaboration, and how power shows up through community engagement and participation. Now we're closing the loop by looking at how these same principles apply to research itself, specifically through participatory research frameworks designed to build knowledge with communities, not on them. So far, we've explored how communities can gain power in project design and decision making, but real equity also depends on who defines what counts as knowledge. In energy, environmental, and infrastructure planning work, data drives decisions. What gets funded, where it's built, and who benefits. Too often, communities are studied about, not studied with. Participatory research changes that by recognizing that people hold data in their experiences and that those experiences must shape both the research questions and the solutions. Let's look at three frameworks that reimagine what it means to do research. Originating from social justice and adult education movements, Participatory Action Research, PAR, emphasizes action and reflection. Researchers and community members co-identify problems, test solutions, and use findings to drive change. It's about knowledge for liberation, not just publication. If your primary focus is on co-learning and immediate action, PAR may be the best fit. It's flexible and rooted in iterative cycles of doing and reflecting. Next up, Critical Participatory Action Research, CPAR. CPAR builds on participatory action research by adding a critical theory lens, interrogating systems of power, privilege, and oppression. It asks not only, how can we fix this problem, but also, why does this problem exist and who benefits from the current structure? If your work explicitly addresses systemic inequities or power imbalances, CPAR may be the most appropriate because it invites participants to question and transform the underlying conditions shaping the issue. Finally, Community-Based Participatory Research, CBPR, is often used in public health and environmental fields. It formalizes partnerships between academic and community stakeholders and values shared decision-making, capacity building, and long-term relationships. CBPR is especially effective for projects that intersect with health, housing, or environmental exposures. If you need a formalized partnership, especially for funded projects with shared governance structures, CBPR provides a tested structure with clearly defined roles and agreements. Each of these frameworks aligns with higher rungs of Arnstein's ladder: partnership, delegated power, and citizen control, where community members hold real authority in defining, conducting, and applying research. Here's how they connect conceptually. Participatory action research aligns with partnership, the middle to upper rungs, because it relies on shared planning and action. Community-based participatory research often falls closer to delegated power. Community members co-lead with institutions providing support and resources. Critical participatory action research pushes towards citizen control, where the community defines the research agenda, interprets the data, and owns the outcomes. By understanding where a research process sits on this ladder, we can assess how deeply it embodies equity. So how do you choose the right framework? It depends on your goals, timeline, and positionality, but whichever framework you choose, equity must remain the foundation. Co-defining questions, co-owning data, and co-deciding what change looks like. Let's explore a well-known case, the PlayPump. In the early 2000s, international donors funded the installation of water pumps across several African villages. The idea was that children could play on merry-go-rounds that simultaneously pumped water from underground. On paper, it was brilliant, fun, sustainable, and community-centered. But in practice, many play pumps broke down quickly, required constant maintenance, and demanded physical labor from women and children. Why? Because the communities were never asked whether they wanted them, how they used water, or what kinds of systems would be most suitable. or sustainable. Now imagine if PAR, CPAR, or CBPR approaches had guided this project. Residents would have co-defined the problem, perhaps unreliable water systems or lack of maintenance capacity. Together, they might have tested several designs that reflected local preferences and labor realities. The research would have included feedback loops, where users evaluated the system and shaped its adaptation over time. The results wouldn't have just been a better water pump, it would have been a model of community ownership and dignity. The same lessons apply to our work to center equity in research. Whether we're studying energy burden, developing solar programs, or planning resilience hubs, participatory research ensures that the people most impacted define what success means. For example, in a community-based participatory research model, residents might co-design household energy surveys. Local nonprofits might co-analyze data with technical experts. Findings could inform community-owned energy projects rather than external ones. When done right, participatory research turns communities into co-investigators, co-educators, and co-governors of their own data. Before we wrap up this Equity in Research series, take a moment to reflect. Think of a time when research shaped a project or policy that affected your community or one you worked on yourself. If you were to redesign it today using PAR, CPAR, or CBPR, what would you do differently? True participation isn't just about asking people what they think, it's about sharing the power to know, decide, and act. Thank you for joining me throughout this series on equity, collaboration, participation, and research. I hope these tools help you reimagine your projects, not as something done for communities, but with them, equitably from day one.